Yes. Okay, Sawadee Welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to anyone who's joining us online as well. This is our introduction to the teachings of the Buddha course. This is where you can learn a bit about the teachings of the Buddha kind of from afar and kind of looking at them and kind of surveying them. And then we're going to actually go into his first teaching so you can understand his very first teaching. His very first teaching is called the Four Noble Truths. This is where you can learn the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. Because everything that the Buddha teaches you is about how to train your own mind so that you can eliminate things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, and jealousy. As you're going to see that those feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind, the teachings of the Buddha aren't based on belief. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping that something good happens when you die. You're actually learning now in the present moment. You're examining and investigating his teachings. You're then reflecting on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing the teachings, integrating them into your life, training your mind and transforming your mind. So you need to have the wisdom of how to actually do that. So that's why you're actually studying his teachings so that you can come to understand the natural laws. I'm going to explain this to you as we get going. But we're going to start with meditation, and this is part of training your mind. So I'm going to introduce you guys a little bit to meditation, and we'll do that together. And then I'm going to introduce you to the teachings of the Buddha, kind of looking at it from kind of more of a surveying way of just kind of observing and kind of explaining what his teachings are. Then we're going to actually go into his teachings and explain the very first teaching, where you can have this breakthrough to finally understanding what's causing your discontent feelings, because in the unenlightened state, you might firmly believe that your anger is being caused by other people. But what you're going to see is that your anger is actually being caused by your own mind, and this is why you can eliminate it. Because there are certain things in your mind that is causing all these discontent feelings. So you can get rid of all the stress and anxiety and loneliness and boredom and guilt and shame and fear and all these other feelings if you understand what's causing it. So this very first teaching that I'll share towards the middle of class, you can have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings so you can eliminate them. But let's just start with meditation so that you guys can learn this and kind of get introduced to it. The way that I meditate is I start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And if you'd like to chant along, you're welcome to. It looks like Roxanne's going to get the chanting sheets and maybe hand them out for you guys. We chant in the Pali language. It's important to understand that these aren't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or prayer, or anything like that. These chants were actually used during the lifetime of the Buddha in order to commit the teachings to memory. That every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word for word for word in order to commit the teachings to memory, because everything he taught was oral. If you read the English translations on these chants, you're going to see a lot of respect and gratitude and admiration for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't even think the Buddha created these chants. So there's nothing mystical or magical about these chants. I suspect his students probably created them either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha doesn't walk around saying, here, chant these things to me out of admiration for me or out of respect for me, because he would have eliminated his ego. He wouldn't have been putting himself above people or putting himself below people. He would have just seen himself as just the same as everybody else. We're just all equal. So his students, having learned how to move their mind to this peace, this calm, the serenity, the contentedness, and joy that is the enlightened mental state, they would have had a lot of respect and gratitude for him, because if somebody helped you move to that mental state and they didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So these chants aren't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. Nowadays, we don't need chanting in order to commit the teachings to memory, but it does help to build some awareness of mind, some focus, concentration, to ease the mind into meditation, getting more benefit out of the meditation itself, because you'll have more awareness of the mind and more awareness of the breath. So you guys are welcome to chant along if you like. There's other courses and retreats where I teach students how to chant. But here today, I'm not going to teach you how to chant. We'll just do it, and you'll kind of see what it's like. Then after the chanting, you're going to hear a period of time where I'm just guiding you in meditation. It'll be like 5 minutes or so. I'll just be kind of guiding you along and helping you to meditate. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. And I'm sure you'll hear occasional birds chirping or dogs barking or cars going by, but all these things are impermanent. If your mind craves permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll be frustrated, you'll be annoyed because you're not getting what you want, right? This environment isn't going to be permanently silent. Even if you went and meditated in a cave, there's going to be occasional sounds. There's going to be water dripping or bats coming in and out or rocks falling or something. So you can't be in an environment that's permanently quiet. It's just not possible. So when you hear these sounds, just remind yourself that it's impermanent, and you're going to hear the guidance where I help you to understand to just bring your mind back to the breath whenever you're meditating. In terms of your body positioning, there's 4 positions the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you can learn these different positions at different times in the various courses and retreats that I share. But oftentimes people are starting in the seated position, so I'll explain this to you. You can sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair or anything like this. You can just sit however you're comfortable. There's not just one way to sit, but here's a little bit of guidance. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This helps to soften your seat, and then just lightly cross your legs. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, and this gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and it allows the circulation to flow. So you like your legs to just be lightly crossed, not real tight, because that'll impede circulation. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people like to put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. It's whatever is comfortable for you. There's not just one fixed way to position the body. And for those of you guys that are in chairs, it's the same thing. Just sit however you're comfortable. You could sit with your feet flat on the floor, lightly crossed at the ankles. You could put your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. You can see I'm sitting in a chair and I've got my legs crossed, so you could really sit however you're comfortable. The upper body is nice if it's erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This helps the mind to stay attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you are real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back. Not only does this keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll help you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to start with the chanting, and then I'm going to come back in with some guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apivateyami Savakhato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno สกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโหโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in naturally through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะกวาโพตังมหากวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหากวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหากวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to those of you guys that joined us since we started meditating. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. What I'm going to be doing this afternoon is sharing with you guys an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. And the first introduction was just experiencing a little bit of meditation. If this is the first time you've meditated, then you've gotten a chance to experience that. If you haven't meditated in the way that I just taught you, this is the way that the Buddha teaches meditation. He has 4 different types of meditations, but this is the primary form of meditation. You're going to need much more than meditation to get to enlightenment. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. You're going to see the things that you're going to be needing to learn in order to be able to move the mind to this enlightened mental state. The first thing I'm going to start with to help you guys to understand the teachings of the Buddha is just helping you to understand what a Buddha actually is. This is really helpful. If you're going to understand the teachings of the Buddha, first just understand what a Buddha is. We refer to a Buddha as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. What a Buddha has done in order to become a Buddha is that they've gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. This is the first criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. Then, once they awaken to enlightenment, to this enlightened mental mental state where the mind's peaceful and joyful permanently, no longer having any discontent feelings, then they're going to share those independently discovered teachings of what it took for them to get to that mental state. They're going to share those teachings for the rest of their life, helping countless people get to enlightenment during their lifetime. Then they're going to preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three primary criteria of what makes a Buddha, is they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings so that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. So you can get to enlightenment, but you wouldn't be a Buddha at that point. A Buddha is very rare in the world. That the last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. So you can get to enlightenment and you'll be plenty pleased with that. But at that point, you won't be an actual Buddha because you won't meet these three criteria. There's some other criteria of what makes a Buddha as well. The thing that allows a Buddha to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides is this fourth criteria. This fourth criteria is that a Buddha has a profound memory. They can remember countless details about their current life and their past life too. Where in your mind, it's kind of like having a hard drive that you have a limited capacity. You might have 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte or whatever it is. But when you get to that capacity, you've got to delete old files in order to store new files. You're smiling at me because maybe you have 1 megabyte. Is that what you're thinking? Yeah, 1 megabyte, right? So when you get to your capacity of your hard drive, you've got to delete old files in order to store new files, right? This is why if you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories. You don't have direct recall of every single thing that was happening during your childhood because you've had to delete old files in order to store new files, right? But a person who's going to become a Buddha, they don't have this limited capacity. They have an unlimited capacity to be able to store information. And what they do is they cultivate wisdom over multiple lifetimes, including their last life. And they bring that wisdom together to be able to then apply it to be able to actually get to enlightenment in their last life without the help of any teachers or any guides. So they've accumulated all this wisdom to be able to get to enlightenment. And then they share that wisdom with other people to be able to help them get to enlightenment. So they have a deep, profound memory. Even in the unenlightened state, a Buddha is going to have a pretty deep memory. And then as they get to enlightenment, their memory is just going to be more and more profound. They also can quickly determine the condition of somebody else's mind and then help that person to be able to get to enlightenment from observing the qualities of that person's mind. So a Buddha wouldn't just step into someone's life and start telling them what they should be doing, but as students interact with a person who's a Buddha, that person would be able to then figure out what's going on in this person's mind by observing the qualities of their mind and then share teachings with them that's going to help them to essentially eradicate certain pollutions in the mind. You're going to learn a little bit about this today, that there's these certain pollutions that are in the mind that are hindering you from being able to experience this peace, calm, serenity, and contentedness with joy that is the enlightened mental state. So a person who's a Buddha can quickly determine the condition of a student's mind and then helps that person to be able to get to enlightenment by sharing guidance with them as the student requests that guidance. Then the last criteria is that a Buddha is essentially a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. They don't teach one thing and then do something else. They actually practice what it is that they teach. So a Buddha understands that their students learn just as much through their spoken words as they do through their actions, right? That a Buddha is actually teaching through their actions as well. Because an individual who's aspiring to get to enlightenment, they're going to need to know how to function in the world as an enlightened being. So a Buddha is going to be enlightened and they're going to be functioning as an enlightened being. And whatever they're teaching is what's led to that mental state, but they're also going to be practicing that too. So if they're teaching to be loving and kind and warm and gentle and friendly and all these other things, respectful, you're going to see that a Buddha is actually doing those things. They're not teaching to be polite and friendly, but they're disrespectful and impolite over here when they're actually practicing. Instead, they're going to be teaching and practicing exactly the same way, because that's how they're teaching, is through not only their spoken words, but through their actions as well. Okay, so this is what a Buddha actually is. Now to talk about what the teachings of the Buddha are. What the teachings of the Buddha are is they are a path to attaining enlightenment in this life. It's a purification of the mind. There's certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind, and you're purifying the mind of those pollutions. They're referred to as the 10 fetters. This word fetter, what it means is it's like a shackle and a chain and a ball. During ancient times, if you were a criminal and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would put a shackle around your ankle with a chain and a ball. And then you would be in a field and you would be confined to that area. Where nowadays, we put criminals in prison cells or jail cells, right? But back during ancient times, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball. They would put a fetter on your ankle, right? So when the Buddha was talking about these 10 pollutions, he referred to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, that it can't experience this brightness and this radiance and this cheerfulness in the mind because it's fettered. It's bound by this fetter. Right? So there's these 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered, and he teaches the tools and the techniques of how to eliminate them from the mind. And as you eliminate them from the mind and you purify the mind, you start experiencing these qualities. This is what the enlightened mental state is, that you start noticing that the mind is experiencing peace, calm, serenity, and contentedness with joy. It's a permanent mental state. That by the time you get to enlightenment, it's impossible for you to experience anger. It's just not possible. And you'll understand why by the end of the class, that there's been a certain purification of the mind, that it's physically, humanly impossible for an enlightened being to experience those kinds of feelings. So all these feelings are eliminated. Sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, stress, anxiety, all these discontent feelings and others are completely eliminated. Your mind's just experiencing peace and joy. The way you can think about it is like if there's the sun and then there's clouds in front of the sun, when the clouds start being peeled away, the rays of the sun can shine through. So that's what you're doing on this path is you're getting rid of the clouds. You're getting rid of the pollution so that the brightness and the radiance of the natural mind can shine through. And that's when you start experiencing these qualities. And because you've eliminated the pollution of your mind, you have a high degree of focus, concentration, memory, and clarity of mind. The mind starts performing optimally, and you start now being able to use those qualities in your day-to-day life. And you can see that this is occurring. That's why the teachings of the Buddha, it's not about a bunch of beliefs and then hoping something good happens when you die. You're actually practicing the teachings now in this life, and you can see these qualities starting to arise in your mind slowly but surely. You'll notice that you have deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment in the world around you. You'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody and anybody around you. Right now, you probably find that hard to do. There's probably certain people in your life that you have some hostility towards, that you might be bitter or harsh towards them. And this is just because of the pollution that's in the mind. When you eradicate that, you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody and anybody in your life. You'll notice that you're not causing any harm to other beings. And because of this, harm isn't coming back to you. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They'll be at ease because when you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile and resentful any longer in your relationships, then you'll notice that these will start to clean up, right? But as long as you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and that's what you're putting out, that's what's going to come back to you. So if you treat your life partner that way, or your parents, or your children, or your coworkers, that's what's going to come back to you. So by you training your mind and transforming your mind, learning to be loving and kind in all situations, more and more, this is the way people will treat you as well. But as long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile or resentful, and that's what you're putting out, that's what's going to come back to you in certain situations. The way that this is accomplished is through eliminating what's called craving, anger, and ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. This is a high-level way of referring to the 10 fetters. The 10 fetters are something that you would need to learn ultimately as you're progressing on the path, but from a high level, we talk about it as craving, anger, and ignorance. And we go into talks and we talk about this in depth, but I'm just going to give you a little overview so that you understand a little bit about what this craving, anger, and ignorance is. What craving is where the mind is longing and yearning. It's chasing after the objects of your affection, wanting things to be a certain way. There's certain wants or expectations that the mind has. It's like selfish desires. It's like an unquenchable thirst. The mind thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. It might be chasing more money, or it might be chasing a boyfriend or girlfriend, or it might be chasing a bigger house, or it might be chasing a new job. And it's not that these things aren't beneficial in your life, because you're going to need a job, you're going to need income, you're going to need these kinds of things. But it's when your mind longs and yearns for it, and you form your inner feelings based on this thing, that this is a craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. And now if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy. It gets excited. It gets elated. Yay, I got more money. Yay, I got my boyfriend or girlfriend. Yay, I got my new house, my new car. Yay, I got to go to Thailand. Oh, I'm so excited. Yay. Right? That's the mind's craving. That, yay, I got what I wanted. But in some situations, you're not going to get what you want. And when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it's angry. It's frustrated. So if you showed up to the airport and your flight was delayed coming to Thailand, you'd be angry, you'd be frustrated, because your mind's craving, you're longing, you're yearning, you're wanting to go to Thailand. But when the flight's canceled or delayed, you're angry or frustrated. Or if your bank account is here and you get so excited and so happy, then when it goes here, you get sad or frustrated or agitated. Or when you get together with that boyfriend or girlfriend, you're so happy, yay, new boyfriend, new girlfriend. But then when you guys break up, sad, angry, frustrated, because the mind's not getting what it wants, which the mind is craving permanence. It's longing, yearning. It's wanting things to be a certain way permanently. So again, if the mind gets what it wants based in craving, it gets happy and excited. This is called conditional happiness. Based on some condition, the mind will be happy. But now when that condition changes, and it will change because you're in an impermanent world and everything's constantly changing, now the mind's not getting what it wants, and it gets angry or frustrated or agitated or some other painful feeling. And now when this anger is arising, that's where the mind becomes unskillful. That's where you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people. You might be pushing people away out of your life, falsely thinking that they're causing your anger and your frustration. You might have pushed friends away or family away, and you think that solved the problem. But it didn't solve the problem, because you keep getting angry and agitated and annoyed over and over and over again. So pushing people away doesn't actually solve the problem. This is called aversion. If this was the real cause of the problem, when you push people out of your life, you would be peaceful for the rest of your life. But you can see that that's not the case. So you didn't actually solve the problem when you pushed those people out of your life. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards someone. This is the mind's lack of wisdom, thinking that what's causing your anger is something external. So you might be bitter and harsh and hostile. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring. And now the mind is trying to fear this other being to do things your way. Because the mind thinks, if I can just get things done my way, if I can get those cravings fulfilled, everything will be happy. I'll be happy. Everything will be wonderful. But you can't get those cravings fulfilled all the time by growling and roaring at people. They might do things for you the way you want for a period of time, but eventually they're not going to do those things that way. And that's no way to live harmoniously with all people. Sometimes when you growl and roar and you're harsh and bitter with people, they're going to choose to leave out of your life. We've all been there. Right? We've had arguments with people and they chose to leave out of our life. Or the third thing that the mind will do when this craving isn't getting fulfilled and this anger is arising, you might put your expectations on people and trying to control them to get them to do things your way. You might have been in arguments where you were adamantly trying to convince somebody that they had to stop doing what they were doing. And it's because of what they're doing that's causing your mind to be discontent. But it's not them that's causing these feelings. It's the craving, desire, attachment. So as long as you're pushing people away, as long as you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, as long as you're putting expectations on people, you can't live with all beings harmoniously. Right? So this is what's happening when the anger is arising. Those painful feelings are uncomfortable to the mind, and the mind's trying to solve the problem. But the mind doesn't understand the problem because of its lack of wisdom. That's this next poison, or this next unwholesome root, this next pollution. It's called ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. Because the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand, it continues to crave and it continues to have anger. That the mind firmly believes in the unenlightened state that other people are causing you to be angry, or other people are causing you to be frustrated or annoyed. But when you look at it closely through the Four Noble Truths, which I'm going to share later, you can see that it's your own mind that's causing this. It's the craving, it's the longing, it's the yearning. You don't need to feel guilty or shameful because of this. Every person who's ever been born is unenlightened, right? So what you do on the path to enlightenment is you're arising wisdom in order to be able to now cultivate the wisdom of what's truly going on within the mind and within the world. And now you can actually transform the mind. You can rewire it essentially so that you'll never experience anger ever again. So even though we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom, this misunderstanding, it's actually because of this ignorance that craving and anger continues to exist in the mind. If it wasn't for this lack of wisdom, you would have already eliminated your craving and you would have already eliminated your anger. But because the mind lacks wisdom, it continues to crave and it continues to have anger, right? So once you purify the mind of this craving, anger, and ignorance, the mind will be completely peaceful and completely joyful. And the teachings of the Buddha are guiding you of how to eliminate this from the mind. Okay, so this is a little bit about what the teachings of the Buddha are. Some more about what the teachings of the Buddha are is what you're arising wisdom about in order to transform the mind is the natural laws of existence. The Buddha is teaching you about the natural world around you. These natural laws of existence, namely the natural law of Gama. Some people have referred to this as karma. The Sanskrit version of this word from the Sanskrit language is karma. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the word Gama. If this translated to just one English word, I would just use that word because it'd be much easier for everyone, but it doesn't translate to just one English word. So I still need to use the word Gama. What this means is cause and effect, or action and result. Every decision you make, either wisely or unwisely, is going to lead to either wholesome results or unwholesome results. So when you make a wise decision, it's going to produce wholesome results or wholesome karma. And when you make unwise decisions, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. The natural law of karma, it's not punishments and rewards. Sometimes people think it's that way, or they think it's something mystical or magical, or they think it's about who's to blame or who's at fault. But it's not that. It's this sequence of events that there's a certain cause and then there's going to be an effect. There's action and a result. And this is the way the whole world functions, based on this cause and effect, or the sequence of events. And if you understand the unwise decisions that are leading to unwholesome results, and you have that wisdom, more and more you're going to naturally make wise decisions that lead to wholesome results. But in the unenlightened state, with our lack of wisdom, we don't understand the unwise decisions that are leading to the unwholesome results that we experience in life. We tend to blame what we experience on other people. When something unwholesome is going on in your life, you might think it's good luck or bad luck. You might think it's destiny or fate, or you might think it's somebody else that's causing those unwholesome things to occur in your life. But when something wholesome occurs in your life, you might be ready to take credit for that, right? That's usually the way the mind works because of its ego and its arrogance. But every single thing in your life that you're experiencing is a result of decisions that you're making. And the more that you see this, the more you can make wise decisions that lead to wholesome results. Because if there's something in your life that you don't particularly care for, you can just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. But if you didn't understand this natural law of karma, you wouldn't be able to do that. So what you're doing is you're learning, you're examining, you're investigating the teachings of the Buddha. You are then reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your life. So his teachings aren't based on belief. The Buddha's teachings have no belief in them whatsoever. You never are taught to just believe the teachings, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. Somebody either convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe this thing, right? The teachings of the Buddha are to help you get to wisdom. To get to wisdom, you need to independently verify the truth. If you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle and you will have difficulties. right? So the Buddha isn't teaching you the way the world should be, and that there's a certain rules or commandments that everybody must follow. And if we all follow these rules and commandments, then the world will become a more peaceful place. He didn't teach you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is and these natural laws, you will navigate the world with this wisdom, and you'll make wiser decisions, and it'll produce more wholesome results. You've done exactly the same thing with another natural law that you may not even realize. With the natural law of gravity, none of us understood this. When we first were born, we didn't understand the natural law of gravity. We struggled. We had difficulties. We fell down. We hit our head. We broke our toys. We busted open our elbows and our knees. We had so many problems with this natural law of gravity. But slowly but surely, we learned, we reflected, and we practiced. We gradually trained our mind on this wisdom of the natural law of gravity, and now we make wiser decisions. We don't have trouble with this natural law anymore, because these natural laws are going to affect you, whether you're aware of it or not. And when these natural laws are affecting you, if you're making unwise decisions, you're going to experience unwholesome results. So we started making wiser decisions. We started tying our shoes a little bit tighter. We started looking at the surface of the street and the sidewalk. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around and so excited all the time. And now we can ride a bicycle. We can get on ladders. We can get on airplanes and travel all over the world, right? Because we understand this natural law of gravity. We don't struggle anymore. But when we didn't understand it, we struggled. We had difficulties. We cried and cried and cried. So there's other natural laws that the unenlightened mind doesn't understand. When you're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and any of these other discontent feelings, this is just because your mind doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It's struggling. It's having difficulties in the world because the mind just doesn't have the wisdom of these natural laws. If you've ever watched the news, or you ever got some news about some family member and you were like, I just don't understand why they keep doing that. I just don't understand why they do that. This is because you live in a world that you don't understand, right? The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. By the time you understand these natural laws, you'll completely understand why brother keeps doing that, or why mom or dad keeps doing that. You'll completely understand it, right? And you can train your mind to not be affected by it, right? So these natural laws is what the Buddha is teaching you to do. He's teaching you to awaken to this wisdom. He's explaining to you how the world is. And by understanding how the world is, now you can navigate the world more readily and more peacefully, right? You can train the mind to experience complete peace and joy by eradicating the pollution and fully awakening to these natural laws. And now you can navigate the world with more wisdom, and you won't have these struggles and difficulties any longer. The teachings of the Buddha are spoken very clear, concise, and precise. His teachings are timeless, that he didn't teach teachings that are like stuck in a cultural past or anything like that. His teachings are timeless because the natural laws that existed during his lifetime are the same natural laws that exist today. These natural laws don't change. So people's memories and people's understanding of these teachings in the books, they have all changed, but the natural laws themselves haven't changed. So when we get back to what the Buddha actually taught, this is where you can see his original words and you can see what he actually taught. And it's timeless because he's explaining these natural laws. And the same things that led to enlightenment 2,500 years ago are the same things that lead to enlightenment today. And it'll train your mind to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state. The Buddha did teach about the cycle of rebirth. And he did teach about these 5 realms of existence, of hell, animal, afflicted spirits, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. I'll explain to you a little bit about these and why he actually taught them. When somebody first starts approaching the path to enlightenment, I suggest you set all of that stuff aside because the Buddha never uses guilt, shame, or fear to motivate you to learn his teachings. In fact, he doesn't even do anything to motivate you to learn his teachings. If you would like to learn them, they're here for you. And if you're not interested, then okay, that's fine too, right? His mind's already peaceful. He's not basing his feelings based on whether you learn his teachings or not. So his teachings are here to help all those who are interested to get that help. But when you first get started, there's kind of core central teachings to be able to learn and understand. And I suggest students focus on those. The cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence, while it's something you're going to need to get to at some point, it's down the road, maybe a year and a half, 2 years away from when someone first gets started. But he did teach these for a reason. The first reason is because it is the truth. You can independently verify the cycle of rebirth. You might not have the wisdom of how to do that right now, that you're continually being reborn over and over and over again. But as you journey on the path to enlightenment, you can gain that wisdom. In our book series of 13 books, it's in volume 11. You can actually see how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. And it's in volume 11 for a reason, because it's something that you don't really need until later. So we taught this cycle of rebirth because it's the truth. And now if you understand the truth, your mind can actually be more stable. Because as you're starting to awaken your mind and you're getting this pollution out of your mind, there's the potential that you could observe your past lives. And if you start having vivid memories of things that have happened in the past life and you didn't realize that that's what it is, it could really shake you up. You could think there's something wrong with you, right? So if you had these profound, vivid memories of being murdered, and you know that it's not in this life because you're still alive, right? But you just keep having these recurring thoughts and memories of being murdered over and over and over again, this could really shake you up. But if you knew that this was from a past life, then no big deal. You understand, like, yeah, that's a past life. I can let it go. No big deal. I'm safe now. No need to be scared about that. It's in the past, right? So this is one reason why he taught it, is that you might actually observe your past lives, and this will help you to maintain your stability of your mind. These 5 realms of existence, as you're awakening your mind and the pollution's coming out of your mind, you might actually have communication with these beings. Oftentimes we think about hell being deep down in the core of the earth and heaven being really far away in some other place, but these beings are actually in the same time and space as us. Right here in the same time and space. Just like there's a human being sitting here, an animal could come over here and sit, right? It's no problem that we're all in the same time and space. And we oftentimes view these realms as in a far distant place, but they're all in the same time and place. And none of these realms are a permanent existence. As you've been taught that, say, for example, the heavenly realm is a permanent existence, you can look around the world and you can see nothing around you is permanent, that there's this universal truth of impermanence. Things are constantly changing. And I'll explain that to you when we get to the Buddha's first teachings on that. But these 5 realms, these beings are operating in the same time and space as us, and you might actually experience communication from them. And just like you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, you could overhear someone's conversation, and you know how to ignore that and just stay focused on the conversation that you're in. This is what you need to do when you start hearing this communication from other beings. Some people call this schizophrenia, that you hear voices of people that aren't there. But this isn't actually a true mental illness. This is just the mind that's awakening. You're hearing the voices of these beings in other realms, and you can just learn how to ignore it. You can train your mind to ignore it. But if you think you're mentally ill and there's something wrong with you and you're ingesting medication to try to get rid of these voices, that's not how you actually do it. The way you do it is you train your mind to just ignore it. Another reason why the Buddha taught these 5 realms of existence is that you might actually see some of these beings. It's possible to see them. So as you're eliminating the pollution of your mind, even though they're formless beings like hell, afflicted spirits, which are ghosts in heavenly realm, you can actually see these beings in some cases. So if you started seeing these beings or communicating with these beings, you might think you're actually going crazy if you didn't understand true reality. So the Buddha taught this for a reason, but it's not something that you need to run out and actually go do and learn right now. Instead, you focus on the core central teachings. And that's why I'm going to start you with the first teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha also did teach about God. Sometimes people say that the Buddha didn't teach about God. They'll even go as far and say that the Buddha denied the existence of God, or Buddha rejected God. This isn't actually true. If somebody's saying this is a huge misunderstanding of his teachings, and they just haven't studied his original teachings. So if you go back to the original teachings of the Buddha, he does teach about God, but he didn't put God as the central focus in his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you that determines whether you get to enlightenment. So he put you at the center of his teachings. He didn't put the Buddha, or he didn't put God at the center of his teachings. He put you at the center of his teachings. So there is this being of God, but the Buddha never teaches you to worship this being or praise this being or be afraid of this being. He never taught that this being is jealous of you or anything like this that you might have been taught in the past. Your mind might have been conditioned to believe that God is controlling things. And when somebody dies, you might think that God took this person from you. This isn't true. We all die for exactly the same reason. We die because we're born. If you're born, you have to die. There's no other way around it. It's not God that's choosing when you die or when you live. It's our choices that lead to that. If we eat a bunch of unhealthy food, we're going to die sooner. If we walk across the street without looking both ways, we're going to die sooner. Right? So it's our decisions that lead to any particular result. So the Buddha is teaching you how to awaken to enlightenment by making wise decisions that lead to wholesome results. This being of God is discussed in the teachings of the Buddha. He actually teaches about multiple gods because during that lifetime, people believed in multiple gods. So he taught about these different gods that people were talking about. But he refers to the God that we probably think about as the great Brahma. When you look in his teachings, he refers to this being like a Muslim person might refer to this being as Allah. In English, we refer to them as God. In the teachings of the Buddha, he refers to it as great Brahma, or sometimes he calls them the all-knowing and all-powerful, the supreme being, essentially. But he just didn't put God at the central role of it in his teachings because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. So you can actually get to enlightenment without a relationship with this being, or you can get to enlightenment with a relationship with this being. It's up to you. You can get to enlightenment either way. It's up to you. And if you continue to learn with me, I would teach you how to either have a relationship with this being and still get to enlightenment, or I can teach you how to not have a relationship with this being and still get to enlightenment as well. Okay, so the Buddha did teach about this being of God. The largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha, it's called the Pali Canon. There's 45 large volumes of books that are about this thick. The Buddha taught for 45 years, from the age of 35 to 80. So when he died, not too long after his death, they started writing down his teachings. During his lifetime, everything was oral. But not too long after his death, they started writing them down because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. It existed in China, but it hadn't made its way into that region of the world yet, 2,500 years ago. And we probably don't see writing things down as technology. But that was technology 2,500 years ago. The language that the Buddha spoke didn't even have a script, because there was no need for one, because they didn't even have the ability to write things down. So it was only an oral tradition. So they actually had to essentially invent a language or invent a script and kind of switch to a different language in order to write it down and actually be able to capture the teaching. So shortly after his death, they started to document his teachings. And that's called the Pali Canon. And it's in 45 large volumes of books. So it might surprise you to know that the average person who considers themselves Buddhist doesn't actually study with the original words of the Buddha. And this is very unwise, but the reason why is because this collection of teachings is so voluminous. And these teachings have kind of been hidden for a very long time, not intentionally, but just because of the cost involved to print out all these books, that the average person just doesn't have them. Even the average temple doesn't have them. So the 45 volumes of books, it would take the average Thai person about 3 months of their salary in order to print out these books and actually have them at home, right? From a Christian background, if you're from a Christian background, you probably can't even fathom somebody studying the teachings of the Buddha without studying with the original teachings, because the Bible is everywhere in a Christian environment, right? And it's just one book, and kind of a lot of people have that, right? But if you had a book collection worth, or I should say, you probably don't have a book collection worth 3 months of your salary. Whatever you earn in 3 months, do you have any book collection that's worth that? Probably not. So the average Thai person, the average temple doesn't have that. But now with modern technology, we've been able to consolidate it and then put it on the internet so that now you can download it for free. So now the teachings of the Buddha are freely accessible. And that consolidated book series is the one that I share. And you can even get it printed out. If you like printed copies, people just reimburse us for our printing costs, and you can get access to this consolidated version of his teachings, because it's studying with his original teachings that is actually going to lead to your enlightenment. If you weren't studying with his original teachings, you wouldn't actually be able to experience enlightenment. So this consolidated book series, I refer to it as The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden. And you can get it from our website for free. You can download it. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can just order it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon in your country, and you can get it that way. So this is the book series that we use. So one of the ways to think about the teachings of the Buddha is it's to heal from what hurts you so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's what the teachings of the Buddha are. It's this inner work. It's this inner development. It's evolving and becoming a better and better human being and healing from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt again. But what hurt you is inside your own mind. Oftentimes we think that what's hurting us is on the outside, but it's not the outside that's hurting you. That's why the Buddha was able to get to enlightenment, because he trained his own mind. He didn't have to go around the world and train other people to do things. He just trained his own mind, and that's what's actually going to lead to enlightenment. So you can actually heal from what hurt you so that you never ever need to hurt ever again. And this is what you'll experience in the enlightened mental state. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions before I go on further. If you guys have questions here, we have microphones in the white bowl there in front of the camera. If you use a microphone, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online too. They wouldn't be able to hear you online if you don't use a microphone. And for those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and unmute your mic and ask any and all questions that you like. And if you get a microphone, you can take it back to your seat and you can keep it with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question. All you do is press the gray button, the lights come on, and then you hold it up to your chin, and then we'll be able to hear you. Okay, do you guys have any questions here? Anything you guys would like to ask? Okay, I'm going to look online, see if we have any questions here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online. Nice to see you guys this afternoon, or morning, or whatever time it is where you're at. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to this next piece, which is I'm going to explain to you what the teachings of the Buddha are not. One of the ways to help you understand what the teachings of the Buddha are is to understand what they're not. This will help you to understand what they are. The teachings of the Buddha are not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you don't believe in them. In fact, his teachings don't have any beliefs whatsoever. They're not opinions. They're not views. He's explaining to you the natural laws, and you can independently verify them for yourself. So his teachings are going to help you to be able to awaken to this wisdom, to understand true reality and accomplish this wisdom. Also, I don't consider the teachings of the Buddha a religion. I know many people do. It really depends on how you consider religion. If you think about religion as an organization with one person at the top, and it's telling everybody else what to do and how they should do things in the world, what they should and shouldn't be doing. If you consider religion rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, if you consider religion rules and commandments that everyone must follow to create a peaceful world, the Buddha's teachings aren't a religion, because the Buddha's teachings doesn't have any of those things. There's not just one person at the top of the Buddhist teachings. There's not any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. Even if you've been around Buddhist temples and you see people doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, this isn't what the Buddha taught. And because we're 2,500 years away from his teachings, and not everybody studies with the original words of the Buddha, you can actually enter into a place that's a Buddhist temple, and you can see people doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, but that's not what the Buddha actually taught. So being so far away from his death, people have gotten really far away from his teachings. But if you go back to his original teachings, you won't see any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, because his ultimate goal is to help you cultivate wisdom. And rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship doesn't cultivate wisdom. There's no amount of water I can sprinkle on you that's going to help you cultivate wisdom. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that's going to help you cultivate wisdom. So the Buddha didn't teach any of those things. So if this is the way you consider religion with rules and commandments, this isn't the Buddha's teaching. So that's why I don't consider them a religion. It's this better way of life. He essentially figured out how to train his own mind and live this better way of life. And then he spent 45 years sharing that with other people of how to train your mind and get to this same mental state. Then the teachings of the Buddha aren't punishments and rewards. If you've been taught this way, whether it's the teachings of the Buddha or any other tradition, he's not teaching you a bunch of punishments and a bunch of rewards if you do certain things. He's helping you to awaken to the wisdom. It's also not mystical or magical or superstitious or auspicious. Some people think about things in this way. There's no superstition. There's no mystical or magical things about his teachings. It's literally learning about the natural laws around you that you can independently verify. His teachings aren't something to attempt to force others or convince other people to do. Sometimes when you're learning things like this, people send you out into the world to convince other people to do a certain thing. The path to enlightenment is for you. It's not for you to convince other people to do it. It's for you to actually do the work, to train your mind. You don't have to go out into the world and convince other people to do things. But I will share with you, as you're becoming more and more peaceful, as you're becoming more and more joyful, the people around you are going to start noticing that, because they know when you get angry and frustrated, and they're going to be like, what's going on? I've noticed the last 6 months you've been so much more calm and more peaceful. What are you doing? Right? They're going to start asking you, what are you doing? And that's where you might say, hey, it's the teachings of the Buddha. You're welcome to go get them if you like. They're over here. Right? But people are going to start asking you, like, what are you doing? Because they're going to notice your mind changing. So you don't have to go out into the world and convince people. People will be able to see how you're becoming more peaceful and joyful, and they will start asking you questions. Where did you learn this? How can I get access to it? What's it like? Where can I get started? Right? So you don't need to carry around a burden to go convince other people to do anything. Also, his teachings aren't any short, catchy phrases that's going to produce some kind of benefit in your life. If you spent any time on social media around like Buddhist groups, you're going to see these short little catchy phrases, and then someone slaps the name the Buddha on there. And if you look at these things, 99.9% of the time, the Buddha never said them. You look to his original teachings, he never actually said them. Somebody came up with some little saying, they slapped the name of the Buddha on there. They were like, hey, this will give me more credibility. Maybe people will believe what I'm saying. And you'll see these floating around all over the place, right? So his teachings aren't these little short, catchy phrases that you see in the world. Also, his teachings aren't stuck in a cultural past that degrades any particular type of person. Sometimes we think some teachings from 2,500 years ago, they must degrade women, right? Or they must degrade minorities, right? No. The teachings of the Buddha have none of that, because he was the fully perfectly enlightened one. He wouldn't walk around degrading women or talking unkindly about any particular race or ethnicity. He didn't do that. He taught men to respect women, and he taught women to respect men, because that's what's going to produce the best results in your life. If we look at people as like this pecking order and this hierarchy, this isn't going to produce harmony in our relationships. So he didn't teach this pecking order. He didn't teach that women were less of a person. He didn't degrade women or look down on people who prefer same-gender relationships or anything like that. He taught that everybody is equal, and that that's what's going to promote harmony within our lives if we consider everybody to be equal. So his teachings aren't stuck in this cultural past that degrades or judges other people. And you'll see this the more that you read them and you learn his teachings. So do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are or what they are not? Anything? Okay. So sometimes what we do is we take a break at this point. We've been here for about an hour and 15 minutes, but other times students are like, nah, keep going, because I have this teaching that'll take me about 45 minutes to teach it to you, and that means we'd be done at about 3 o'clock. So if you guys would like to take a break here, I can surely take a break. It's up to you guys. If you'd like me to keep going, I'll just keep going. Keep going? Okay. Yeah, if you'd like to take a break, there's a bathroom back there. There's some water. We have snacks around. Just rest your legs. Guys make yourself comfortable however you'd like to do that. Yeah. Okay. So this is the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. And this is where you do what we call establish right view. This is where you understand in 4 simple statements the problem in your mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is where you can have a breakthrough. You can finally understand once and for all why you experience anger and sadness and frustration. But you can't believe what I'm going to share with you. Don't believe anything I ever say. Don't believe anything I write in books. Don't believe any of it. You need to be able to learn it, investigate it, and examine it. You need to be able to reflect on it, to independently verify it. And you need to be able to practice it, integrating it into your life. And I'm going to show you how to do that with his teachings. His teachings are assembled in this core central teaching of the Eightfold Path. This is the core teaching that you're learning as part of your journey to enlightenment. This is the path to enlightenment. And as you learn this, there's words of the Buddha behind each one of these factors. And as you dial this in closer and closer into your life, that's what actually produces enlightenment. You can think about like a speaker system, and you have these 8 dials. And if you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of these speakers, you would tweak these dials and try to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, right? So your mind is the same way. You can tweak your mind to get it to the point where it's producing better and better quality, that it's optimized. And it's this path that's going to do that for you. The very first step is called right view. That's what I'm going to teach you today. This is the very first step. It's called the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha teaches you what is the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward in 4 simple statements. So I'm going to teach it to you in a way that you can learn it, you can reflect on it to verify it, and you can practice it. But this is where you need to listen with eager ears. You can't just sit back and, la, 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 la. But if you listen and you pay attention, you can have a real breakthrough here to be able to understand what's causing these feelings for you. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. We call them truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But again, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you're learning, reflecting, and practicing and not believing. So let me show you how this works. The universal truth of impermanence is essentially teaching you that everything is constantly changing in the world around you, that things arise, they change, and they fade away. That everything around you is going to be constantly changing. This is called a conditioned object. Anything you can see, hear, smell, taste that touches the body, and anything that goes through the mind, like thoughts or ideas, it's all impermanent. It's constantly changing. Okay, so these are called conditional objects. This is the universal truth of impermanence. Remember, the Buddha is teaching you how the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you how the world is. Because as you're going to see, the mind doesn't understand this. And this is what's leading to your frustration and the other discontent feelings. So this first universal truth that is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths is that everything in the world around you is constantly changing. There's this constant change, the universal truth of impermanence. These are called conditional objects. There are things called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. The only things are enlightenment and the natural laws itself. These are unconditioned. Once you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state. It doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. And the natural laws themselves, they don't arise, change, or fade away. That's why the teachings of the Buddha are timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws don't change. These are unconditioned objects. There's no condition that's causing them, and that's why they don't change. But every conditional object is going to arise, change, and fade away. Okay, so this is a little bit of the intellectual learning about the universal truth of impermanence. But now you don't believe it, because what I'm teaching you is everything's constantly changing. So now you start reflecting on this to determine whether it's true or it's false. You start looking around the world. You've been in the world long enough. You can look around the world and see, is what I'm saying true, right? And I suggest you start with something that you're familiar with, like this body. You're very familiar with this human body. Ask yourself, is it permanent or is it impermanent? If the body's permanent, it's been the same your whole life. It's never changed. If your body's impermanent, that means it's constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? 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 Yeah, it's constantly changing. From the time of conception, the egg and the sperm coming together, we're constantly changing, right? We grow teeth, they fall out. We get more teeth, then they get cavities. We grow hair, we cut it, it grows some more. It turns colors, we get different colors, we lose our hair, right? Our nails grow, we cut those, make them shorter, it grows some more. There's this constant change. We get pimples and moles, get a little extra fat or maybe a lot of extra fat, right? Body's constantly changing, okay? What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? If they're permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If they're impermanent, that means people have been coming and going in and out of your life throughout your whole life. So are your relationships permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, right? What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, 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 but it's changing, right? It's constantly changing, right? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's sunny this morning, then it rained, now it's sunny again, right? It's changing, constantly changing. Some places it snows, it sleets, it hails, tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons. We have all these different things, right? This is constant change, okay? So you need to be able to deeply soak into your mind that the things around you are constantly changing. And this is a building block that's going to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, okay? If you don't see this yet, keep looking around the world. If you can find something that's permanent, you've disproven it, and it's not a universal truth, right? So when you look around the temple, you can see the walls of the temple. They've got holes, they've got marks, you got different things. This is all impermanence. You can see the wood planks on the floor, different colors, different shape, different texture, different lengths. This is all impermanence. We started out with a certain number of people in the class. Now we've got a different number of people in the class, right? Things are constantly changing, okay? You're walking down the street, you see a crack in the sidewalk. That's impermanence. Here in Thailand, the sidewalks go up and down, right? Sometimes you're walking down the street and you have to walk up to get on the sidewalk and you have to walk down to get off the sidewalk, right? Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't. You look at a fence that's got paint, maybe it's fading. That's impermanence. There's constant change, okay? The second universal truth is called discontentedness. This is where the Buddha is describing the unenlightened mind to you and what you experience in the unenlightened state. This is called conditional feelings. This is sometimes referred to as suffering. If you've learned the teachings of the Buddha in other places, they might have referred to this as suffering, or if you've read books or something like that. I don't translate it that way because when you hear what the Buddha taught on this important topic, suffering isn't the best word to be able to describe this. So I translate this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Because what the Buddha is describing is that in the unenlightened state, you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are very pleasant to experience. Then there's painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and others. These are very painful to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. And I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say, oh, that's very painful for them. Okay, you could put that in the painful category then. But shyness is a good example, right? Shyness, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if you're on public transportation and someone you don't know comes and sits really close to you and your body is touching their body, you probably say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Your mind's kind of uncomfortable, it's dissatisfied in that situation, right? So this is the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. Okay, so the Buddha is describing the unenlightened mind is going to experience this up and down and up and down. And these are what's called conditional feelings. Based on some condition, you are going to be happy. And then when that condition changes, you're now going to be sad or frustrated, right? So if you get happy when it's sunny outside, that happiness is conditional. Based on the sun, you now have happiness. That happiness is based on the condition that it's sunny. And now when that sun changes, you're going to be sad. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be angry, right? If you get happy when your bank account's here, then you're going to be sad when it's here, because you're having conditional happiness. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness or unconditional happiness. That's what an unenlightened being is experiencing, is unconditional happiness. But in the unenlightened state, there needs to be some condition met, and then you will be happy. Your mom and dad does this, you're happy. They do this over here, you're sad or angry. Your bank account is this, you're happy. But if it's over here, you're angry or frustrated. Right? Your boss does this, you're happy. They do this, you're angry or sad or frustrated. This is called conditional feelings. And this happiness is ultimately displeasing and unsatisfactory because it's only temporary. It arises, it changes, and then it fades away, right? Because it's conditional. So if you get happy because of the sun is impermanent. So as soon as that changes, your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings of anger, sadness, frustration, or some other discontent feeling. Okay, so this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, and you can independently verify this because you know you're unenlightened and your mind experiences these things. You can think about the different feelings you've had over the course of your life and ask yourself, is there any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? Because if this is a universal truth, and this is describing the unenlightened mind, then you should be able to look at this and say, okay, these different feelings that you've had, it should fit into one of these three categories. If there's some feeling that you've had that you think doesn't fit into one of these three categories, you can let me know when we get to the question period and we can talk about it. Because what an unenlightened mind is experiencing is like, say you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside, you might get so happy, so excited because there's maybe a hike that you would like to go on. Maybe you like to go bird watching and you get so happy and so excited. Yay, it's sunny outside. I've been wanting to go hiking for a long time. I'm going to call my friends. We're this special trail we would like to go on. And now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. And now you're frustrated and now you're angry because you formed that happiness based on the sun. And now when it's not sunny outside, you're angry or frustrated. What an enlightened being does is their mind is beyond this, that they see it's sunny outside. Sweet, let's go hiking. I'm going to call my friends. It's going to be a great time. I've been interested to do this for a long time. Let me go take a shower. And now when you go take a shower and you come out, it's raining. It's like, okay, well, it's raining. So maybe I need to stay home and read a book. Maybe I need to go to the mall. Maybe I invite my friends over for dinner. Maybe we'll go to the movies. We'll just do something else. No big deal. The happiness wasn't based on the sun. So when that changes, your mind is not going to be frustrated or angry. So the enlightened mind is beyond this conditionality of these feelings that cause the mind to go up and down, right? And the Four Noble Truths is going to explain to you how to do this. Okay, so this is another building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. And you need to independently verify that this is what your mind's experiencing, because this is a universal truth. This is the problem in the unenlightened mind. Now, the third noble truth, or the third universal truth, this isn't a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, but I'm going to teach it to you anyway, because it's a good introduction to be able to help you understand this. It's called the universal truth of non-self. What the Buddha is teaching you here is actually a solution to one of the problems that he found in the mind. Remember, there's these 10 individual problems. They're called the 10 fetters. The very first fetter is called personal existence view. What this is where the mind has confusion or misunderstanding or misperception. This is where the mind thinks that this body or this mind is you, and you'll cling to it. You'll cling to a self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, or you'll cling to a self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And now when the mind's getting what it wants, it'll get pleasant feelings, but when it's not getting what it wants, it gets these painful feelings. So if you've ever been at a social event and you've spilt something on your clothes and you got embarrassed, this is personal existence view. The mind is holding on to this body, thinking that this is you and who you are, and now the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when you're not being perceived that way, you'll experience the painful feelings like embarrassment, right? Or let's just say you have a pimple or a mole, or maybe a gray hair, or you start losing your hair, or you have a wrinkle, or you have a little bit of extra fat here or there, and you look in the mirror and you see that, your mind can be shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view. The mind's clinging to this body, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. And you can only feel happy when you're being perceived that way. So when you have a pimple or a mole, you're not being perceived the way that you want to be perceived, and now your mind is shaken up by that. This is because the mind's clinging to a certain self-image, wanting others to view you in a certain way. And you can only be happy if your mind is being perceived that way. So the mind is clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. Then there's a self-identity that the mind can cling to. This is like, I am American, or I am Chinese. Sir, I didn't know where you're from. You're Italian, okay? Like, I am Italian, right? We can cling to this as our identity of who we think we are. It can be your culture, it can be your ethnicity, your nationality, maybe your sexual orientation, your job or occupation. Your mind can cling to these things, thinking that this is who you are. So now, when somebody says all Italians are loving and kind and warm and gentle, or all Chinese people are loving and kind and warm, or all Americans are loving and kind and warm, you might be like, wow, oh, they're talking about me, right? But then it's only a matter of time before you're at a restaurant or somewhere else and you hear somebody say something negative and degrading. All Americans are blah, 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 or all Italian people are blah, blah, all Chinese people are blah, blah, blah. Well, if you identify with that as who you are, you'll be angry. You'll be frustrated because now they're talking about me, right? Or let's just say you have a job or occupation. Say you're like a police officer or a lawyer or doctor or a taxi driver, something like this. And you identify with this is who you are as a person. Now, say I've been a police officer for 10 years or 15 years and identify I am a police officer. But now I get injured or I get fired and now I'm doing this other job. Maybe I'm an electrician or something else, right? And now my mind's frustrated because I am a police officer, but I'm having to do this other work this isn't me. This isn't who I am. Or say you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, and you identify with I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I'm a wife. When you guys were together, you might have felt great. But then when you separated, your mind didn't identify with I am single. And now you might have been frustrated in that situation. You might have felt agitated. You might have felt lost. You might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. And you might think that that was going to solve the problem. But the problem was actually this personal existence view. The mind didn't identify with I am single. It identified with I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. And the mind wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship again, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. But that didn't solve the problem. It's the personal existence view. As long as your mind clings to anything, you're going to experience discontentedness. I had a student one time that called me. He said, hey, ever since COVID happened, I go into these restaurants. They want me to pay electronically. I'm going in to just order a drink. It takes like 30 seconds to order the drink with the cashier, and they turn around the computer, and I'm supposed to put in my little thing to pay, and it says, what's your tip? 20%, 25%, 28%. And he's like, I never tip in these kinds of places. Like, I spend 30 seconds placing an order. Why do I need to tip? He's like, I am a great tipper. Why do I need the tip? I'm so conflicted going into these places because I am a great tipper and I don't feel comfortable in these places anymore. And it's like, okay, here's the problem. The mind was identifying with I am a great tipper. And now when you're not tipping, you don't feel good. You don't feel comfortable. You don't feel whole, right? So your mind can cling to any number of things, thinking that I am this. And as long as you're clinging to that, you're going to be conflicted when that's not intact. In fact, people come to Thailand in search of themselves. They're coming here to maybe find their true self. They say, I don't know who I am anymore. I need to go on a journey. I need to go find myself. They're not going to find themselves here in Thailand because it's not here. That's what the universal truth of non-self is explaining to you, that there is no self. You're not going to find yourself here because it doesn't exist. You might find new friends, you might find new hobbies, new activities, you might find a new job or something like this, but you're never going to find yourself because it doesn't exist. The Buddha is saying that this body is not you. This mind is not you. Right? But the unenlightened mind will hold on to this thinking that this is you. Okay, so the universal truth of non-self is explaining to you that there is no self. Okay, now this is how you independently verify this, is think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about how you viewed yourself, your personality, your character, things like this. Has it been exactly the same through that entire time frame, or has it been constantly changing? Constantly changing, right? You can see there's no self. If your arm was amputated and you only had one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Saying no, not less of a person, right? Well, there you go. You know, this body's not you. Because if I asked you that question and you said, yeah, I'm less of a person, that's because you know that this body is you. And now with less body, there's less me. So when I asked you, are you less of a person? You said, no, I'm not less of a person. You just have less use of a hand and an arm. So this is where your mind has confusion. It has misunderstanding. Because intellectually, you know that this body isn't you. Because you would have answered that question differently had this body actually been you. Your mind's confused and it's misunderstanding because when somebody says something negative or degrading about this body, you might get angry, you might get frustrated, right? Because the mind thinks that this body is you. That's the confusion and the misunderstanding of personal existence view. Here's another way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? That's what people do. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, people usually point here or here, right? So you got to look at what you're pointing to. When you're pointing here, you're pointing to a shirt. Is this shirt you? Is this shirt me? Like if I took off this shirt and hung it up and I said, is that me? Is that who I am? Is that who I am, the shirt? Is that who you are, that shirt you're wearing? Everyone's saying no. Okay. So where are you then? Let's throw away the shirt. Where are you? So I might point again. What are you pointing to? Skin, right? So if I took off the skin and I held it up, is that me? Is that who I am? Is that who you are? That skin you've got, is that you? Is that you, your skin? No? Okay, let's throw that away. Where are you? Someone might point again. Got ribs, bones, muscle tissue, organs, fluid. None of those bits and pieces are you, but the mind's going to cling to it and think that it is you. None of this stuff is you. It's just a body. They're just physical structures. There is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, but this isn't you. It's not who you are. Okay? So this is what the universal truth of non-self is teaching you, that there is no self. Now, sometimes people understand this when I explain it the first time, other times they don't. If you don't understand it, it's okay. That you'll have plenty of time to learn this at other times, but this is something that is a universal truth, that there is no self. And what the Buddha is teaching you is to not hold on to this body and identify as this is who you are. And also same thing with the mind, is don't identify through the mind as this is who you are. Because there's certain choices and decisions that you've made in the past, but that doesn't define who you are as a person. Right? That's what the Buddha is teaching you to do, is don't feel guilty and shameful about those things. You made whatever decisions you made in the past. They're in the past now. Don't feel guilty and shameful about them. But if you identify who you are through the decisions that you've made, for example, you'll feel guilty and shameful now. So he's teaching you how to get liberated from that or free from that so you can experience peace and joy. So do you guys have any questions on any of these here? Would you mind getting a mic so the people online can hear you? You can just press the button and then the lights will come on.
I have a question about the discontentedness.
Mm-hmm.
A real man with like true wisdom, is he don't have any conditional feelings because he know that everything is impermanence, and he just believe everything happens naturally, and like he will accept everything that happens, so he won't have any conditional feelings, like always stay in peaceful and calm.
It's true that they don't have any conditional feelings, but not for the reasons that you're mentioning. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you have unconditioned mental qualities where your mind's always happy and it's always joyful. And there's no condition that's causing it. So when you wake up in the morning, you're just already happy. Before you even see the weather, before you know what's going on in the world, you're already happy. And then you turn on the news, you see what's going on, you're still happy. You're not happy because of the war. Your mind is happy despite there's a war going on in the world. You're not happy because it's sunny outside or because it's raining outside. You're happy regardless. There's no condition that's producing it. So your mind is beyond that. So you don't just accept what's going on. This is like the unenlightened mind can see like two different sides. And we'll get to it when we talk about the Four Noble Truths. But there's this middle way where you understand what's going on in the world. And that's why your mind is peaceful, because you don't have what we call craving, desire, attachment. You don't want things to be a certain way, that you have goals and objectives of what you would like to see in the world, but your happiness isn't contingent on that. If your happiness is contingent on your bank account, you can only be happy when your bank account's a certain balance. Or if your happiness is contingent on what your mom and dad do, then you can't be happy all the time, right? So you will have eliminated this next thing that I'm going to teach you, which is craving, desire, attachment. But it's not through belief, and it's not through just acceptance. That's not how one gets to it. It's actually actively training the mind. I think you'll understand a little bit more if I keep going.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so this next piece that you need to understand is called craving, desire, attachment. This is if you turn that off, we won't get feedback. This next piece is called craving, desire, attachment. Also wants, expectations. This is the mind's longing, yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection, wanting things to be a certain way. This is the mind thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. This is like the mind is thinking that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So if you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, brand new pair of shoes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I want those so badly. Or, new jewelry. Yeah, that's what I want. I want that. Or new phone, new computer, new car. Boyfriend and girlfriend. That's what'll make everything better. Let me get a new boyfriend or girlfriend. That'll make life so much better. You guys know what I'm talking about? This is your mind pulling towards something. It's like an unquenchable thirst. The mind thinks that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. Okay, so these are the building blocks that you need to know in order to now understand the Four Noble Truths. This is where you can have the breakthrough to understanding what's causing your discontent feelings. The first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. The problem is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. The discontentedness is the problem. The up and down, the conditional feelings that I can be happy and I can be sad, and the mind's going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. That's what the problem is, the discontentedness, the conditional feelings, okay? Then the second Noble Truth is explaining the cause. Discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, so I'm going to say that a few times. I'm going to give you some examples. The conditional feelings, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. This is being caused by the mind's cravings, desires, attachments, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way. The mind craves permanence, and it lives in an impermanent world. Okay, so let me give you some examples. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. So happy, so excited. You're going to the movies, you're going out to dinner, you're going to the park, you're having great conversations. You're just interested in getting to know each other, right? Things couldn't be better at the beginning. You might even be having intimate contact where you're having sex with each other. So much pleasure, right? And this is based on the condition that you've got this affection, you've got this person in your life, and now you're happy. But now as time goes on, your expectations grow and their expectations grow. They want certain things from you, you want certain things from them, and you can't fulfill their expectations, and they can't fulfill your expectations. So you guys split up. And now you're angry, or you're sad, or you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling bored, or you miss this person. This is because your mind's holding on. You're wanting this person to be permanent in your life. It's not love. The love is a genuine interest in seeing this being be well. What's causing the painful feelings when you guys broke up is the mind's holding on and wanting permanence. It's craving for this person to be permanent in your life, and they're just not permanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you are going to die first, right? And now this person is impermanent. Now you grieve, right? So say grandma and grandpa die, or mom or dad or brothers and sisters. It's not your love that's causing the sorrow and the grief and the displeasure. What's causing that is the mind's craving permanence. It's wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent, but they're not. If the mind gets what it wants, which is grandma and grandpa alive, you're happy. But if they're dead, meaning you're meeting with this impermanence, if the mind's craving permanence, you'll be sad or frustrated. If you've ever been to a wedding and people were crying, or maybe you were crying at a wedding, this is because the mind is craving. It's craving for brother or sister, your child, to be permanent. And now when they're going off into the world with somebody else, you might have grieved or you might have been sad because the mind's experiencing this impermanence and it doesn't understand. The mind craves permanence, right? Or maybe you got dropped off at university, or maybe you dropped off your kids at university. Or if you think back to when they were in kindergarten or preschool and they were crying and maybe you were sad too. Right? Because the mind's craving permanence and trying to hold on to them. In reality, they're going to go away sometimes. But if you crave permanence, it's going to be very painful. Here's another example, maybe something more simple that you can understand. Say you have this idea of a brand new car, that you would love to get this brand new car. You just want this new car so badly, and you've been saving up for 5 or 10 years to get this brand new car. You've been working so hard to get it. And now you go to the store, you buy this brand new car, all in cash. Here you go. Here's the money. You get in that car, you drive off the parking lot. Your friends are seeing you and waving. Wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's so successful. You're feeling so proud driving that new car. You park it at the store. You go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my goodness. You might be angry. You might be frustrated. It's not the scratch. It's not the person who scratched your car. That's not what's causing it. The reason why the mind's frustrated is it's craving permanence. It wants this car to be permanently beautiful. And this car is not going to be permanently beautiful. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anyone's car. That's what we all try to do. But because of the universal truth of impermanence, someone's going to be pushing a shopping cart, the wind's going to blow, something's going to happen, and boom, there's a scratch on the car. Because the universal truth of impermanence is going to happen. The paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery's going to get ripped or torn, something's going to happen to this car. But if your mind craves permanence, when you see that, you'll be upset, you'll be angry. But it's not the scratch, and it's not the person who scratched the car. Because you could come out and be like, wow, look at that. There's a scratch on the car. Thank goodness I got insurance. I'm going to get that fixed. You maintain your calmness. No need to get angry. No need to get frustrated, right? But if your mind craves permanence, you'll be angry or frustrated. You'll be discontent because you got so happy when you got the car. Now you're going to be sad or frustrated when there's a problem with it. Right? So this is the cause of discontentedness. And when that discontentedness is arising, when the painful feelings are arising, this is where you might push people away. You might be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or you might put your expectations on someone and try to control them. Because the mind firmly believes that the problem is external. Because what I'm teaching you is it's your own mind that's causing this. It's your own cravings. It's not mom or dad or brothers and sisters or boss or anybody like this. It's not your life partner. It's your own mind that's causing these feelings. But if you don't have the wisdom of this, you will firmly believe that other people are causing your anger. And that's where you'll push people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. Okay, so now you don't believe this. You independently verify it. Think about a time when you've been angry or sad or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It might have been this morning. It might have been yesterday. It might have been last week. Think about that situation. What was it that your mind wanted? There was something you wanted. And at that time, you might have been blaming somebody else. That's usually what the mind does. We look for someone else to blame for our feelings, right? But look at that same situation with these fresh eyes, with this new wisdom. What is it that you wanted? If you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But since you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry or frustrated or annoyed. Do you see it? You see it? You sure? You see it? Okay. Right? So you can independently verify that your mind is causing your own feelings. So the way you practice this is now and forever. Whenever your mind's angry, don't look for someone to blame. Look internally. What is the craving? What is the longing? What is the yearning? What are you wanting that is causing this? Because the third noble truth is explaining you how to eliminate your discontentedness. The elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you can eliminate the cravings and desires and attachments, you can eliminate your discontentedness. So an enlightened being doesn't walk around with craving, desire, attachment. They don't want things to be a certain way. If there's a certain number of people in the class when we get started, that's fine. If people choose to leave, that's fine too. There's just impermanence, right? It's just change. That's it. But if you crave a certain number of students in the class, when people start getting up and leaving, maybe they have to go eat, maybe they have another obligation, you'll be angry, you'll be frustrated, right? But if you don't have craving, desire, attachment in your mind where you're clinging, you're holding on, you can be completely peaceful and joyful, right? And you can independently verify this. Think back to the boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys first separated, you were angry, you were frustrated, you were lonely, you were bored, you were missing this person. But at some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. Let him be. Or if she wants to move across to another part of the country, so be it. Let her go. Your mind let go. And when you let go, you gained your peace, your joy. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, is don't grab on and hold on to these things. But your mind doesn't know how to do this because you've been holding on for so long. It's not a matter of just saying let go and your mind can let go. It's not that easy. You need to actually train your mind to let go. And that's the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth is explaining to you the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to train your mind how to let go. Because right now you don't know how to do that. Your mind is having craving. It's holding on. It's clinging. So the Eightfold Path is the complete perfect plan that's showing you and training your mind of how to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment. This is what's going to train your mind to let go. And the meditation is part of that. That's why we did that this morning, or this afternoon too, is that when your mind's on the breath and it moves off the breath, you let go and then you come back, right? And now the mind moves off, you let go and you come back, right? So if you had to let go 10, 20, 30 times during your meditation, this is very good. Yeah, it helps your mind to let go. And that's why you need to consistently train your mind with the meditation to let go. And not only do we use meditation, but we practice generosity, where you're giving and you're sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation, without any expectation of anything in return. You can share your time, effort, energy, and resources. And when you're sharing with others, it trains your mind to let go. Because what we tend to do is, if I spend 3 hours doing this, I want this in return. Or if I spend 3 days doing this, I want this in return, right? But you would like to get to the point where you don't cling to that. You're just giving, living open-handedly. And that's where generosity comes in to train your mind to let go. Because with craving in your mind, you'll become somewhat selfish and you'll hold on to things. And it'll be hard for you to share, like your food or your clothing or your jewelry or your money or your friends or your family. You'll find it hard to share with other people, right? So you would like to be able to share with other people. This is what you do when you're practicing generosity. So each day you're practicing meditation and you're practicing generosity, among other things. You need to practice other things. So what I just shared with you guys is called right view. This is where you're learning of what right view is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment. If you had wrong view, you would be blaming other people. And you probably have wrong view right now, right? That maybe you've been blaming other people. That's normal because you have a lack of wisdom. But when you have more and more wisdom, you can realize that it's not other people that's causing these feelings. And now you can establish right view. And if you understand what's causing these feelings, now you can actually eliminate them. If you keep blaming other people or you keep pointing the finger to other people, you can't change anything. because you can't control your mind. It's other people. But when you establish right view, when you understand it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, now you can actually do something about it because you know what the real problem is. And the Buddha's giving you the solution, and you just implement the solution and you'll experience more and more results in your day-to-day life. So this is a multiple year journey to gradually train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state, but it's a permanent mental state. It's kind of like we're used to climbing up a mountain and then we have to come back down, right? But this is the type of mountain that once you climb it, you get to stay up there and enjoy the view and enjoy the fresh air, that you never have to come back down, because once the mind is in that enlightened mental state, it's a permanent mental state that you're experiencing your whole life. And your mind will be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. Essentially, as I mentioned, what the teachings of the Buddha are is to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. What hurt you is inside your own mind. And now, once you know what that is, you can actually fix it. You can actually solve it. Okay? But it just takes time to gradually train your mind. And that's where a teacher comes in. A teacher is like a tour guide. We kind of point out to you the things that you need to learn. We help you with books and videos and podcasts and other resources like this. But it's up to each student to maintain their own individual practice. You're not a follower. You're not a devotee. You're not anything like this. You are your own individual practitioner. You're looking for wisdom. And a teacher's role is to help you. We share the light. We hold the light and we show you where the path is, and then you walk the path. You need to read, meditate, come to classes. If you like to ask questions, you ask questions. If you like personal guidance, you can sit down with your teacher and get personal guidance. This is all options available to you at no cost. You can learn all of these different things so that you can heal from what hurt you, and then you never need to ever hurt ever again. So do you guys have any questions on anything that I've been sharing with you guys? Have questions? No?
Too open, too much to learn.
Okay. Too much for you right now?
No, I'm saying there's a lot to learn.
A lot more to learn. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Let me see if we have any questions online. Looks like we have something coming in here. Let's see. Okay, that's not a question. Okay, all right. I'm not seeing any other questions. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to end here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for coming to learn. Thank you for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, you're more than welcome to do that, because all of our classes you can learn here, but you can also learn online because we live stream all throughout the world. And if you can't make a live class, then they're recorded. You can learn that way as well. We have a regular program. In fact, I think I might have a slide on this right after this. Yeah. Here we go. We have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and quizzes. It's all available from our website. This is how you get continued support. There's in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats. You can access those here because you can learn here. You can learn online. We have ongoing programs, which it meets. This group learning program is a beginning program. It meets each Sunday and Wednesday, either here or online. And then we have a Saturday class, which is here. Usually people start out with this group learning program. Next week, we have the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course from Monday until Friday from 9 to 3. And you can come to any portion of that you like. That's a really nice place to get started. Or you can start in any of these other programs. You can also come talk to me and I'll help you understand how to get started based on where you live or what you're involved in. Then you can also get personal guidance where you can meet in person or online. If you'd like to meet online, you can just go to our website and schedule an appointment, and then we can meet online, and it's available at no cost. We just meet in Zoom because it's one thing to learn in class, but it's another thing to relate it to your specific needs and what it is that's going on in your life. So if you'd ever like to meet privately, you can do that either in person or online. And then we have a Facebook group where you can go in there. It's kind of like an online classroom. Students are asking questions and I'm the only one who answers. Other students are reading those answers because that's how they learn sometimes. Or some students might be asking a follow-up question, but nobody's answering your questions except for me. That way you can really understand what the actual teachings are. And I make posts in there about different things. So if you'd like to join that, you might decide to join that. Okay, so thank you all for joining, and maybe we'll see you guys in a future class. Whatever you decide to do, have a lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Okay, take care. Sawadee ka. Sawadee ka.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.